Friends, I'm so delighted for you all to be here for this conversation today with Sho Baraka. Sho is all the things, a true theologian, a master at just so much. He is a chart-topping hip-hop artist, definitely a public speaker, founder of the AND campaign, which is so cool. And I guess Justin Giboney is
Yeah.
the AND campaign guy now.
Yeah.
Is that right? I know him
Yeah.
too. That's so
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, Sho was just a visionary and a prophet in our day. And I am just delighted to talk. Above all, that Sho is, and his resume is quite extensive. He is actually an author, I forgot to mention that, of an incredible book called He Saw That It Was Good, Reimagining Your Creative Life to Repair a Broken World. What a beautiful title. And above all, that's relevant to me about Sho is that I can learn and grow and reimagine so much in the disability space because of his glorious work. They're having 2 children experiencing autism. Is that
That is
correct?
correct.
And so I don't pretend you know an ounce of my story, but I had a massive stroke and now 16 years later am fairly severely disabled and just really advocate for the disability community a whole lot and just feel very called to be about people with disabilities, particularly those who do not have the access, advantage,
Yeah.
opportunities that I have had throughout this journey of healing, which I say loosely because I feel like you're tracking in this space enough that it's not about physical healing at
Yeah.
all and so much deeper. And we'll get to that momentarily, but I'm very, very struck by your work. Oh, I want to ask about so many things. One, I'm just so struck by all your thinking, processing about your 2 sons experiencing autism. And I want to ask you if you can, in fact, remember any presumptions or assumptions about family life that you had before you had kids of your own?
Oh, wow. I don't know if you have enough time for me to do that. I likely wanted the perfect life. We have aspirations of essentially being married for those people who desire to be married, and you have the 2.5 kids, as they say, or the nice house, maybe pets. I don't do pets because I'm allergic to them, but live in a nice community, and you imagine that I'm going to live vicariously through my kids. All parents act like they don't do that, but you do that. You want your kids to
Yes,
engage in the things that you love. You don't pressure them, but you hope that they do. And so those were my
of course.
aspirations. Like, hey, maybe my kids will love to write. Maybe they will get into music. Maybe they'll like athletics. Maybe they'll love debate. Maybe they'll love these things. And so our daughter, who was born first, was neurotypical. And, things look like they're on the right trajectory. And then you have your next child and the Lord shakes things up. And so I
Yeah,
definitely had
yeah,
great expectations of what I thought my life should look like. And the
right.
Lord, as
Yeah,
some people would say, we bring him a contract, if you will, with all these things written on it. And we say, hey, Lord, sign this contract. And then what he does is he
right.
takes that, he rips it up and gives you a blank paper and asks you to sign at the bottom of that blank paper. And that
Mm,
really reassessed my understanding of what it was to follow a good God, no matter what the circumstances are.
mm. Yeah. Your son experiencing autism in the middle, what is his name?
Zakai,
Zakai. So Zakai, and then your youngest son who's also experiencing
Zimri.
autism, or how far apart are they?
There's 5 years apart. 6 years
Okay.
apart. 6 years apart. Look at me being six
Yeah.
years apart.
Oh, does it matter? Listen, you're a special needs dad. It's amazing you got dressed this morning. Please, I get it. It's hard to keep your
There
clothes
you go.
on. Much think about yourself
Yeah.
totally. And I appreciate you saying that your neurotypical daughter, who was born 2 years before your second, is that
Hmm.
right? Um, is now out of your home. So you are currently um in the home with both children. Are they verbal
So
or
technically,
nonverbal or
technically they're nonverbal. They will be listed as nonverbal, but they communicate enough to communicate needs
yeah,
to
yeah,
the Lord has blessed us with wonderful assets like a school that they attend and people who have helped us to get them to a point where they can live independently within the house. So they don't necessarily need
yeah.
us when they're in the house. When we leave the house, that's when there definitely needs to be some guidance. So they talk, they
Mm,
read, they type very well on phones and computers.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Typically labeled as as nonverbal.
Nonverbal, both of
Yes.
them. Wow. Well, 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 no matter how well they do communicate, being nonverbal is, I would imagine, been very
Yeah.
difficult for you and Patrice. I spent 2 months fully, or close to 2.5 fully nonverbal,
Uh,
and actually many more with the use of a communication device called a
uh-huh.
letterboard, where I would basically type
Yep.
letters and it would say the letter and my family would spell words. So I could communicate as well through that. This was before texting was very prevalent or
Uh,
anything like that, 10 years ago. However, being nonverbal is one of the more difficult things for everyone involved, for the
Absolutely.
person, for the
And
family. It's
one
extremely
of the things
difficult.
that I've realized, and I think there have been research and studies and communication from people on the spectrum that has broken a lot of wonderful research, is that a lot of the behavioral um, angst or problems that our children or family members experience is because of their inability to be able to communicate their desires and needs. And
Of
we
course.
realized that as our child began to adapt more language and we became more creative in how we communicated or uh, discern their problems, we started to see the behavior problems dissipate as well. And so it's
Wow.
very interesting for people who can't communicate very well on how easy it is for us to forget the how much communication is necessary in communicating needs, emotions, struggles. And as you've experienced for those 2 months, you recognize like, oh, even the way we love, it's it's we overemphasize the communication of love. And I've learned through
Right.
my relationship with my sons that they love me like nothing else. They don't tell me they love me. They show that they love
That's beautiful. I would love to meet your sons. I deal with a population where there are many, many children in my life who are nonverbal, and all of whom communicate beautifully.
me.
You don't
Yes,
need words to communicate.
absolutely.
You don't need sound.
Absolutely.
So I hope to meet your sons one day. I wanted to ask you, as a parent to kids with disabilities, what has had to die in you, if I might ask that, and what has been born in you? Because it's
Oh
both.
man, that's a wonderful question. I wish I would have known because I feel like there's some sophisticated answer out there that, but I'll just give you the,
I don't want that. I want the honest, real, raw, vulnerable, instant response. And I say
yeah,
that almost flippantly, and yet I said that and got chills over my whole body because I know too much to know that while there are things that have had to
yeah,
die, and it's so painful, there's also such
amen.
beauty that's been born, such beauty.
The thing that's died is my aspirations to be empty nester. my aspirations to be able to do the, I guess, 40, 50-year-old life, to live and travel and do as we want to do and not have cares as it pertains to raising children. Like, our kids are going to be living with us most likely for the rest of our life. And so those
Yeah.
like to be in my later years and to enjoy life has died. I've realized that I'm always not only hopefully be caring for my wife and she'll be caring for me, but we'll also have to care for our kids. And we're hoping that we'll have a community of people who will assist us with caring with them. So that's what's died. I guess these grand expectations of what it looks like to be an empty nester. What's been born in me is this advocacy and this empathy and compassion, I think, that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. That when I see other families or when I see people in stores, like, one of the things that was very common for me growing up, or even in my early adult life, is that you'll see a child throwing a fit in the grocery store, and you'll be like, that parent needs to get it together.
Right.
And you
Yeah, of
and you'll be
course.
like, what is wrong with them? And now
Yeah.
I don't have that. That's not my first response. My first response is thinking, like, one, I empathize with potentially how embarrassing it is for that parent. And then two, I think of, like, what that child may be going through. And then the next
Hmm.
thing is, like, it may not be any of my business, but if I feel like if I could be an advocate in that moment, I try to be, you know. The last thing some people want
Yeah.
is somebody walking up to them and saying things. But there are times when it's been just a single, well, for instance, I'm on a plane with a woman who has a child who's on the spectrum, and he's just having the time of his life on the flight. And you can tell that nobody else is having the time of their life. Everybody else is just, and
Totally.
because she was behind me, and I said, hey, I want to let you know that I am not bothered. And I have a boy. At that time, I only had one son. I said, I have a son who's on the spectrum, and I understand what you're going through. And she just started to, like, break down and crying. And it was just one of
Oh
the
yeah.
most beautiful things that I could have ever done for someone. And then she told me her story, how they were traveling to a certain part of the country to get some therapy and procedures done. It was just really, you could tell she needed. And I think what was burst
Yeah.
in me was this sense of advocacy that I think a lot of us need, a lot of people need in
Hmm.
moments of despair and hopelessness.
Seriously, I am so with you. I'm reminded before having kids, if I was on an airplane and heard a kid screaming, it would be
Yes.
annoying, and that was about all. Now, if I'm on an airplane and I hear a kid screaming, I try to make eye contact with the mom and let her know it's cool. I feel you. It's
Absolutely.
fine. Don't worry about it. We all been
Yeah. Yeah.
there. Goodness, I'm flooded even recently with memories of being in the airport as a woman with disabilities and seeing someone traveling alone
Mm,
who's in a wheelchair or has to, have several people helping them get out of their chair onto the chair wheelchair and onto their
yeah.
plane. And I will seek that person out and just say, "You're doing a great job. I know this is a lot." Or if I'm passing them anywhere in public, I'll say, "Hey, roll on. You got this. You're doing awesome." And really affirm them in a way I wouldn't
Yeah.
have known what I put myself out there is what I'm saying, I guess, in a way I wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
before because I know how much it
Yeah.
matters. You're dying to know, is this bothering everybody around
Yeah.
me? And you're self-conscious. And I love being able to say, I'm so proud of you. You're doing it. It's
Absolutely.
not easy. And I care zero. I feel honored that to be in this moment with you. I've said that before in an airport to a lady in the wheelchair holding a baby.
Absolutely.
I just I have been there. I have been a young mother with a baby in the wheelchair. It is not an easy deal, and I'm honored to be in this moment with you. And of course, she starts sobbing
Yeah.
because
I'm interested.
everybody needs it.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm interested to get your opinion on this. observation that I've been wrestling with when it comes to the Lord calling us to particular things. And I think the Lord calls certain people to suffer in ways that I think we don't often preach and teach. We can see that through Paul. When he calls Paul, he talks about, he sends out a nice, he says, tell him how much you will suffer for my sake. Obviously, Hosea and Gomer says, go marry this woman, although she will be um, uh, uh, um, unfaithful to you, but you will continue to seek her.
Right.
And I think one of
Right.
the things that, in your story and my children's story and so many like us, that's a form of suffering. And oftentimes we see suffering as punishment. And it's not that. It's ways that I think draws us not only closer to God, but it draws us closer to other people and to empathize in ways with God and other people that puts us in a position that we probably wouldn't have known before. Have you
Right.
found that to be, I guess, true? And do you even see suffering as, do you see, I guess, your particular state as a form of suffering?
I love that you're asking me questions on this podcast. I am here for this. And I'm wrestling with all of those thoughts constantly. And I definitely cannot speak for anyone else. My experience is my experience, and that's it. I see God sparing me from living in the illusion that I have control, that I am I'm owed a perfect life. That God chose me to see just hurting people well, and he has given me just the support to immediately just crave to go outward and just begin to share the comfort that I've received with others. And I'm not sure everybody would get that, would respond that way, but I think God did, in fact, choose me for the suffering, which is pretty radical, but I don't care. I'll say it. It's true. I feel chosen by God.
Thank you for that answer. That's encouraging to hear. Very challenging.
Oh.
I imagine not only to live to say, but definitely encouraging. Bless you.
Well, I mean it, and it's so unrelatable. I don't say it very much, to be honest, but I mean it. Like I was made for this life, and my body doesn't fit in this world, and yet I was made for this life. What do you do with that? It's pretty complicated spiritually.
Very.
But I'm here for it. And what's cool is I know enough of you and your work to know that you're here for it too. So let's continue this conversation knowing the discussion of a perfect life is one you very much are wrestling with always as well. And okay, I want to pivot for a moment first and talk about miracles, because I really love your thinking about this. There was a time after my stroke that my family and I really expected a certain type of miracle would happen. Pretty much I would be walking again, my face wouldn't be paralyzed anymore, I would eat food normally, all the things that have never happened. So much healing, physical healing has happened, but many of the quote unquote miracles everybody was looking for have never come to me in these 16 years. And most of all, it was that I would pop out of the wheelchair and run back to my old life just as it had been before. And now, all these years later, I know that a miracle did in fact happen, but I had to start looking for the miracle in front of me instead of the one that I expected or wanted. And it's a vulnerable thing to ask you, but did you and Patrice harbor any hopes of a certain type of miracle for your boys, of them being quote unquote cured?
Yeah. I don't know if we ever spent significant time like really putting our energy towards this idea of being cured. We pray it every now and then. I don't know, and then part of that guilt is like, do we really believe that it happened? And so I think there was moments of like trying to figure out, all right, well, are there particular therapies? And then you begin to trust the therapies more than you are trusting God. And then you're like, well, what is it to trust God and not trust therapy? And then you get in this whole conundrum and you're just like, Lord, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know. And then the reality of it is I think very similar to what you just communicated. There's something in front of you that says, just love them. Just love them for who they
Yeah.
are. This is not just about
Right.
you. This is about them and what you can learn from them as well. And once I began to say, all right, we're going to pray for hopes of healing, but we're going to live as if that healing will never. And
Yeah.
I think that's been our posture.
Yeah.
People come and prophesy certain things or speak certain things over us. We don't grow angry towards them. We say, we thank you. We thank you for your heart and your desire to want to see our kids be, normalized, if you will.
Yeah.
But we
Oh, for
also
sure.
see the value in who they are right now. We want other people to also see the value in who they are right now. And
Right.
so what does it mean for us to not force them onto the world? Because there was a long period of time where I was ashamed to take my kid places because I was like, I don't know how he's going to act. I don't know what he's going to do.
Right.
And so that was part of what died in me. It was like, man, I just don't want to take him to the store. I don't want to take him to the barbershop. And then eventually it was like, no, Sho, like, you're going to help educate people so that the next kid that they have to cut hair for, they will understand, oh, maybe this kid needs the same treatment that Sho's kid needs. So anyway.
Mm. Oh yeah. I will say to that 100%. I know what you mean. I can be literally on a stage and say, I am healed. I am doing amazing. Yay, yay, rah, rah. Literally, before I get off the stage, people are waiting behind the stage to pray with
Yeah.
me for healing, physical healing. So I'll tell you my trick in case you want my trick of what to do in those situations, which are way too frequent and happen in places like the grocery store. It's so weird.
Oh, wow.
People want to pray for my healing everywhere. Because I'm in a wheelchair. It's like
Right.
the sign, like I've got a big sign on me that says "Come pray for healing."
Yeah.
Is I will say absolutely. I welcome all prayer. Please pray for my tongue. Pray for my marriage.
Yes.
Pray for my kids. Pray for my heart that is not pure.
Yes.
Pray for so much beyond what you see as disability and brokenness in this
Come
story.
on.
Pray for me. And that is really just flip the script moment, a game changer. Oh, okay. Like, yeah, because what I was concerned with was that you are a one note case that needs prayer, period. That's hard stop. You are nothing more than your body, which is so
Mm,
ridiculous. That I'm a soul,
yeah.
and you need to pray for that, and pray for the other things in my life as well. And I've just seen it being very just game changing for people's eyes to be open that it's not just about the physical. So
We are more
you
than
should
our
do
bodies.
that
That's
now and
good.
then.
The body is an excellent thing, but we are more than our bodies. That's a good word right there.
Hmm. Um, So, one final question about miracles, and we'll move on. I wanted to ask you, so have you gotten a different kind of miracle than the one you
So I will
expected?
say yes. I would say, I kind of mentioned this earlier. Our son, when I say behavioral issues, it was through the roof to the point where we didn't know what to do. Like we were so frustrated. I didn't grow up in a household that taught me how to manage my anger and temper. It was like if you were frustrated, you met frustration with
Mm,
frustration. If somebody was angry,
mm,
then you met anger with anger. And so I felt like that's how I deal with my children. If my children are throwing a fit, then I'll throw the bigger fit in order to get them to see
yeah,
who's the
yeah, yeah,
character in this particular space. And
of
at some
course.
point I realized like this is just not going to work. Like this doesn't work. And I sought help. We got advice from behavioral therapists, lots of prayer, lots of meditating and self-work. And over a period of about a year, our son went from throwing fits, banging his head, hurting himself, trying to hurt other people, to being one of the nicest, kind. Even to this day, I don't think he's thrown a legitimate fit in the last 10 years. He has been
Oh,
a
wow. Wow.
wonderful example of like what it means to change and progress. And I think, as I said earlier in this interview, I think part of it is the patience that we've shown with helping him to communicate. Once he started being able to communicate more clearly, um, once we took the time to not show aggression when he showed aggression, but to show love and to be firm in our restraint, but not to display anger,
Mm,
which would escalate the situation. I believe that is a true miracle in ways. The Lord has
yeah.
shown up in a
Yeah.
way that I don't think we could have done without not only just through prayer, but through assistance and wisdom of other people. And so oftentimes when you pray for
Yeah.
miracles, I think we think that it just falls out of the sky. And I think what happens is the Lord brings you people through those prayers that give you guidance, right? If we pray like, Lord,
Mm.
allow me to be more patient. I just want more patience. Lord, I need to be more patient. I need to be more patient. He's not going to drop patience out of the sky into you. He's going to put you in circumstances that's going to test your patience.
Of course, yes, for sure.
Appreciate that, that it not only happened, but that it proved as a wonderful example of the Lord's grace in our life.
Mm. You're such a great dad, I can
All right.
tell.
Thank
I
you.
bet your wife is an amazing
She
mother.
is.
I have found that the typical able-bodied parents of neurodivergent or children with disabilities of some kind are just a different level of
Oh,
parent.
yeah.
There, I said it on air, mark it down. There is just just what they've learned,
Yeah.
what they're living day to day, but also like the knowledge, the wrestling, the processing.
Absolutely.
It's profound work. I saw on your Instagram the liturgy for parents with kids with special needs that will be in the new Every Moment Holy. Is that right?
It's
That's
in the one that
coming
came
out, or
out.
is it out?
It came out in the one that came out last year.
It's absolutely brilliant and just so deeply encouraging because, as you know, for so many parents of children with special needs, they've just got broken
Yeah.
hearts. It's extremely hard to know which way is up, especially in the early days of your life being turned upside down. So yeah, I put a lot of emphasis on the encouraging resources for anybody just, walking with a broken heart.
So this is parenting children with special needs. This is a liturgy for every moment holy. Praise to the God who carries no prejudice or partiality. Comfort us, Lord. Comfort our children. Whisper wonderful songs to them when they are speechless. Thank you for your grace that is made sufficient in our parenting. Praise unto his Son who gave words to the mute, our Lord who gave function to the dead limbs, touched the outcast. We know the lame walk, the blind see, but give us strength and resilience when they don't. So we say thank you for our children. Forgive us for the envy we hold. Forgive us for the jealousy of other families. Forgive us for the expectation of perfection when you provide enough. Forgive us for the pity we use for comfort when you are enough. Help us to overcome the embarrassment of public judgment. Help us to overcome the guilt and shame of our children's disability. Remind us that our children are no punishment or mistake, for they too are image bearers. So we thank you. Thank you for our children. So that's just a part of
Mm. Oh, it's everything. It's glorious. I just love your perspective so, so
Thank you.
much. In your glorious song, Words 2006, is that the
Yes,
title
it
of
is.
Words
Yep.
2006? You wrote the line that my sons are not a punishment or an accident. They're just a little abstract masterpiece of what the master did. And honestly, this is one of the better descriptions of disability that I have ever heard. It's everything. So wow, yeah, that hits deep. I would love to ask you, how did you get to a place of appreciating your sons as masterpieces
Mm,
rather than mistakes?
I think it was a process. I think so. I wrote that song in 2015, and so as the title of the song communicates, Worth 2006. My son was born in 2006, so I think it took many years for me to get to a place where I, one, didn't harbor guilt, that my wife didn't harbor any guilt, like it was her fault that our children were on the spectrum, and also not looking to the left or the right, wanting somebody else's life. Now, if you ask
Mm, yeah.
our children to be healed, of course, but I think that many years after his birth, we came to an understanding. He is enough. We are enough, and our God is definitely enough. And so, in this predicament we're in this situation we're in, there's enough sufficiency for us to live, as God said, He will not put more on you than you can bear. And we learned what that is. We learned to love one another. We learned to love Him in ways that we don't, love differently and display that differently than we do with our neurotypical daughter. So I think it took some time. It took some learning. It took some failing. And that's the thing, I think, us as parents or our spouses of people who hold disabilities, is that we have to understand, like, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to be the the final form of for our children and our loved ones. And you're going to fail, and you have to forgive yourself. And you have to forgive yourself
Mm.
for not doing it right all the time. And I think once I learned that it was okay to fail, but to grow from that, I think that's when I began to see not only them as a beautiful masterpiece of the master's work, but also I saw that I was still a unfinished product as well. As you say, I'm
Yeah.
more than just this body. I am still in a process of being made new over and over again at each day.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Wow. Gosh, I'm just so struck by so many things you think and say, and I didn't know that that song, Words 2006, is the year your son was born, who had no words. So of
Yeah.
course I'm like, just a little wrecked by the beauty of I'm sure you've heard that quote many times, that the smart ones take their broken heart and turn it into art. You've probably heard
No, I
that. And
haven't.
that's
That's beautiful.
always just, I know it's been such a important part of my journey, is just making my own little unique art in this
Amen.
world, and knowing that that's part of taking the broken heart somewhere. I wanted to come back to a couple lines from that glorious liturgy you wrote. And first of all, I just want a reason to say them out loud, including this one. Teach us how to be innovative in the ways we connect with our
Mm.
children. And I'd love to ask you, how are your sons receiving connection today?
So one aspect of being nonverbal is that it's not that people don't speak or they don't use words. They just use them in ways that aren't neurotypical. So they don't hold conversations, if you will.
Yes,
Some
yes,
actually do not have words. Those who have words don't use them in the way in which our social constructs are usually used, if you
right.
will. And so one way that my
Yes.
son uses his words is he does what they call scripting. So he watches a movie and he likes this line from a movie and he repeats it all the time. Some people, I don't know if you've seen Transformers, there's a character, Bumblebee. Bumblebee,
Yes, of course.
he speaks, the way he communicates is through taking lines from movies or radio ads, and he speaks through these radio ads. Well, my son does that a lot. And oftentimes he wants me to participate. And for the longest time, it was annoying. And then I realized, oh, this is his way to connect with me. He says a line and he waits for me to say it, and he wants me to act it out. And
Oh, that's really sweet, really sweet.
this is hilarious. This is where he gets this from me. He doesn't just want me to say them. It's not just, say the line. No, he wants me to act it out in the way that the actors.
Right.
And so and if you don't do it good, he'll keep saying it until he's satisfied. It's like a director on a set. He's like, line, and he looks at you waiting, and you have to give it all you have. And I love it. And he just finds it so funny, and he laughs and walks away. And I just love doing that with him. And that's one of the many things that we do as a form of connection.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so cool. I want to meet your son.
Oh, we can make it happen.
One
We can make it happen.
Only 2 more big questions, but I have 1,000 bubbling in my head and heart, but I'll keep it short.
It's always the situation.
No kidding, especially when it's someone brilliant like you I'm talking to. In that beautiful liturgy you wrote to teach us to grieve well. What we mean, teach us to grieve well. What may never come to pass in this life, the events we may never get to experience, the conversations we may never have, the dreams we must release along the way. Yeah. I mean, oh, wow. So what is the loss that feels most overwhelming to you as a dad of sons with special needs? Because I read that and I know that there's loss there.
So Paul talks about the thorn in his side. He doesn't say he doesn't mention it as he wants it. This continuous thorn is this thing that he has to live with. And the one thing that I am learning as my kids get older, there are different seasons and you mourn different things and grieve different things in each season. And I'm having to come to grips with this idea, like for the first half of my kids' life, it was just simply seeing them participate in school plays. It was simply watching them try out sports, or it was simply like going to the park and not having to like really overthink them playing on particular things or their interaction with the other kids. I don't have that luxury. And so you grieve that. Now that they're older, it's, my son is a teenager now, almost an adult. You're like, he probably won't ever go to a real prom. You probably will never date a young lady, so I won't be able to teach him how to treat a young woman, how to be to respect a young lady in a particular, scenarios, or he won't ever drive a car. And so these are all these things. And so then when he gets older, there are other things that we won't be able to do. And so you're having to consistently reassess your relationship as seasons change. And you said something earlier about parents just having a particular calling and gift. And I truly believe that. Like I applaud any couple, any individual who makes it through difficulties like you and I are experiencing, because people barely make it when they have it all together. And when I say all together, in the sense of all of the veneer of life. And then you add this to it.
Yes.
It's even more reason for us to be selfish, even more reason for us to be self-indulgent, to be considering, well, I need my time. I need to enjoy my life. I need to do this. It's me. And the experiences that my wife, the difficulties we've had, one thing we've done is we've overlooked the difficulty of what it takes to raise kids and still have a good marriage. and
Yeah.
raise kids on the spectrum, better yet, and still have a healthy marriage. And I think now we're not overlooking that anymore. We're realizing like this is this is hard work, and we need to, like, in so many words, praise each other for what we're doing.
Mm. It's really, really good. I wish there was more time to ask you to unpack that even more because your marriage is so adorable to watch online. That piece you all did about going out to dinner and the spreadsheet of where you should eat, like you're hysterical. And I love a couple that can laugh at themselves. You and your
Yeah.
wife are clearly cracking each other up. And my husband and I are a little that way. Maybe that's something in the special needs community.
Absolutely.
You're like, well, hey, you might as well laugh about
You have to
life.
laugh.
You might as
Oh,
well,
you have to.
I might as well find some levity and humor in some hard stories.
Oh, absolutely.
So, okay, listen. So, do you have any favorite books, albums, podcasts, scriptures, or other kinds of resources you'd recommend to a parent who has just received a new diagnosis for their kid?
I would say that you just be careful with certain therapies and institutions that promise miracles, whether it be scientific miracles, medical miracles. Like, I think you got to be skeptical of those things. And for the most part, they are very expensive. And you invest
Right.
all this money into some of these therapies, and then you have marginal change, and then you become not only disillusioned with that, sometimes it leads you to a greater depression. And so I think we often
Oh,
have
for
to
sure.
just have just healthy boundaries on our expectations of what change and therapy can do to our children. So one book that I would probably recommend is Spectacular Bond by Dr. Marion Blank. I like Dr. Marion Blank as a human being. She really personally helped us. We had a wonderful relationship with an individual who was connected to her, and she helped us not only with our kids' readings, because she had a platform called ASD. I think it's ASD Reading, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, ASD Reading. That, once again, I'm not promising any significant change, but it really helped our kids. So if your
Right.
kids are of school age and you feel like they're not understanding sentence structure, they're struggling with reading, ASD Reading was a wonderful asset for us. So, and then her book,
Mm.
Spectacular Bond, and I'm pretty sure anything she's written, but that's the only book that I've read of hers.
I ask every brilliant mind such as yourself the following question and just answer with whatever randomly comes to
Okay.
mind. I ask, what is good in your story? What is hard in your story? And how do you live in the tension of both of those in your good, hard story?
What is good in my story is that I have a beautiful wife and three beautiful children. What is hard in our story is the diversity of our mental capacity and the diversity of our neurology,
Mm,
and how we live that out
mm,
is oftentimes hard, complicated, but there is beauty in our attempts. There's forgiveness in our mistakes, and there's love that is unbreakable, I believe. And we have made a commitment to love each other through the difficulties despite our physical circumstances.
mm. That is a beautiful answer and just such truth. Wow, it's very, very special. That's almost like a prayer for our listeners as we
Amen.
close, that we would live out the characteristics of your family. Wow, that we would be quick to forgive regardless of neuro our neurology.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, and
Well, thank you so much for having me,
quick to love.
and you continue the good work, and don't grow weary in well doing. And
That's right.
yeah.
You don't grow weary in well doing in your corners either.
Amen.
So
Amen.
I'm watching along and seeing that you clearly are not burning out. And instead I'm comforting others with the comfort that you've received. And it's beautiful to watch. So thank you for being
Thank
here,
you.
Sho.
Thank you for having me.